Tell me what you guys have been playing a lot. Like this, we just had a month-long break, basically, right? There was 524. There was just, everyone's kind of soaking into preseason. You are about to jump out of your chair.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I've been playing a ton of Poppy.
Poppy?
I love Poppy.
Yeah.
I think Poppy's incredibly strong. Like everything she does, and she's so versatile. You can use her as an engage, you can disengage and just peel for people, and she stops a lot of people's options, which I think is one of the best things and worst things in a PvP game, because you get to read the player easier. You're just like, oh, you can't use a dash now, so you have to flash or you have to fight me. So I think that she's really cool in that regard, but she's probably a little strong.
I've been playing Poppy as well. I've still been playing Zac. I think he's good. I think jungle's not bad right now. There's like Elise, Lee Sin, Kindred.
I'm sorry, that's the most, that was like the most season 4 thing. It's like, I think jungle's in a really good spot right now. There's Elise, Lee Sin.
They're fun. They're entertaining. Dude, I would rather play Elise versus Lee Sin repeatedly for the rest of my life than see a Warwick in my game ever.
Well, you bring that point up about dueling junglers, which is why I want to get your thoughts on Runic Echoes, right? Like we have this, it is a new item for an item that was already a new item, right? Like relatively speaking. And so how do you feel about this Runic Echoes item?
So I think Runic Echoes is, it's pretty hard to judge, I think, without actually testing it out, because it's going to be a lot less dueling power. Right now the only junglers who actually get Runeglaive that are viable are Elise and Nidalee. And traditionally in their duels they get a lot of procs. So I feel like they'll lose a decent amount of damage. So it'll be harder to duel with them, but I think the move speed might actually make some other champions viable, because 10% is a lot of move speed, and if you get boosted swiftness too, you're just moving way too fast around the map.
Yeah, we've had like some internal playtests with like Fiddlesticks running around, and like, over the past few patches, he's been pretty weak, right? And in our internal tests, he is just like running around at what feels like light speed compared to what you're used to on a Fiddlesticks, and just like bursting people with echoes with his ult and just killing people. He's everywhere.
My take on these items is that Runeglaive did something where you had some dueling power and it kind of helped you clear, but then aside from that, it didn't really accomplish too much for you. But what Runic Echoes is going to do is it's going to be a more holistic item for AP junglers. It actually has more AP on it. It's got 20 more AP. So people who were missing that early game spike of having the Sheen aren't going to miss it as much as you would think. They miss some CDR, but then they get movement speed, which is so good in the jungle. And also, like, if you're a Fizz, because I know there's some Fizz jungle players out there who are a little upset because they think that their Sheen is so delayed. Well, when you get Runic Echoes and Lichbane, it's better. You have 7% more move speed, and you end up with a 0.2 extra AP ratio than you did before. Sure, your Ludens is more upfront damage when you first buy this item, but then also, for other people who aren't Fizz, it unlocks other options, like Elise. If you want to get tanky, Iceborne Gauntlet is something you can take now, when you couldn't have done that before. So I think this is a good item that opens more things up.
We have Aiden saying things like, oh, well, they sometimes are not good at gap closing, or sometimes not good at ganking, or they have bad first clears, right? Are these intended trade-offs of mages?
So I would say that I wouldn't specify exactly what an intended trade-off of any mage must be.
Right.
But I would say that, like, I think it is good for two things are good about having them in the jungle if we can get them there. One is that just class diversity. If we open up different classes to different positions, we create an ecosystem where, like, if you look at Kindred, right? Like, Kindred is a jungle marksman, and so now you're still probably going to run marksman in the bot lane, but like, you're maybe more likely to run like a Graves or a Mordekaiser down there, someone shorter range who's a lot more in danger.
non-standard relative to the cast, yeah.
Exactly. So like opening up different positions to different roles, I think is really good, and so enabling mages. And then on top of that, like, we have to be careful about like trade-offs for mages in the jungle, because on one hand, I actually think it's really good design-wise for every character to have meaningful trade-offs. It's like, if they don't, then like, what's their weakness?
It's kind of a
what's the
core
downside?
tenet of things, right?
Yeah, and I would argue, like, I know you love Elise and Lee Sin, but I would argue at sometimes one of the problems I've had with them is that they didn't express meaningful trade-offs in their jungling, and so it basically shut out everybody else, right?
That's true. I mean, sometimes they can be oppressive, but at the same time, I would rather see Elise versus Lee Sin every single game than, play him against, like, an AFK farming Warwick or something, because that's just so boring. Like, it doesn't feel like entertaining gameplay to me.
I guess my response to that is, I think that is a problem with Warwick's kit, but it's also important that characters do have trade-offs. We just have to make sure they have the right trade-offs, because is bad at jungling being a jungler's trade-off means they don't jungle, right? So they have to have a trade-off somewhere else and be good at jungling.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about trade-offs, and one place I have not seen many trade-offs is within the Keystone Masteries. Specifically relative to Thunderlord's Decree, where it was like right after we had shipped the patch. I think a lot of us thought it would take off, and I was like, oh, I mean, it seems good. I don't know how good it is, and I tabbed and did see 10 in a row, and I was like, huh.
It's that good.
There we are. We're living in that world. So how many Thunderlord's Decrees are you seeing in your games?
I've seen a lot of Thunderlord's Decrees.
I mean,
the Gypsy Lord's Decree.
some games I'll see like up to 2 players not using it.
Wait, so those players like losing? Like,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes top laners take grasp. I don't know if they're trolling or what, but
you report them after the game, right?
100%. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So, I mean, how do we feel about the state of Keystones as well relative to Thunderlord? Because Thunderlord itself is curiously not nerfed in this patch, but there are a lot of other changes we have.
Okay, so the deal with that is, like, I'm just gonna say it. I screwed up on the balance of these last patch. We were trying to solve a lot of things, and we did a lot of balance changes, and we left Thunderlords where it was. And honestly, one of the reasons we're not nerfing it this patch is we think that one of the big problems is we went too far in the other masteries. It wasn't that we made Thunderlords too OP, it's that we made all the other masteries kind of weak. We actually really like, even though Thunderlords is in every game, it's like we really like a lot of the stuff it does. It's a huge high moment. You get this super cool zap and particle. It's like, it's exciting, it's fun. When we're mastery is exciting and fun, like never.
Yep.
So that's really great for us. And so we'd like to buff out the other stuff.
I thought Thunderlords was, I mean, it was strong, obviously, you know, it was in every game a lot.
Yeah.
But I think precision was probably the real issue there. I think that if precision was in the offense tree, you wouldn't have seen as many Thunderlords. Well, ferocity, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm using the old terms.
This guy still says wraiths.
Come on, Grandpa. Get with the times.
I think a lot of it's the fact that the other Keystones just aren't really that good, you know? Sometimes I take Strength of Ages on tank junglers and stuff. Grasp is useful in top laners who are going to be scrapping a lot, but honestly, it was... Fervor was good, and Warlord's Bloodlust were good on... And there were some edge cases where they were too good, you know, like a Tryndamere just was way too good with it when they applied on creeps.
With the Warlords, yeah.
And so it felt like those masteries just kind of got gutted because it was too good on specific champions. And so we're sort of just left over with Thunderlord. And I don't really have an issue with Thunderlord. It doesn't feel too OP or anything, but it just seems like the other ones could use a little bit more like versatility. Like
when I look at Keystone Masteries, I think of things like what you're talking about right now, where I think that when you take a Keystone, it's supposed to be something where I'm making a decision saying, you know what, this is how I like to play League of Legends. I like to burst somebody and then run or chase them down, right? Or I like to take Thunderlords because I want to be able to trade with them and then get out and then do it again in 20 seconds. What is the overall goal of Keystone Masteries? Is it player expression? Because that's my opinion of it. Or is it just something where we're trying to make it so that some champions have more things in the late game, more early?
So to speak to that, one of the big goals is player expression. It's saying like, hey, I really like playing Talon, but you know what? I think that I like burst fine. I don't want Thunderlords, but man, if I could just like get out after a fight, wouldn't that be cool? And now you can because you don't get slowed. With Storm Raider's Surge. And so player expression is a big goal. That said, because of the constraints of the mastery system, we have these mastery trees. There can only be so many keystones before we run out of space. There's also things we have to consider where it's like the primary goal, the most important thing is that at least every champion in the game has at least one keystone that they feel good about. They feel, wow, this is for me.
There is another thing that I know wakes you up at night and keeps you screaming towards the sky. Frost Queen's Claim.
Yes.
Oh,
That's
that item.
That's a fun item.
Fun.
Real fun. Love it on support. I just buy it on all of them.
And a lot of my mid laners, so all of them.
Well, so I mean, we all have that reaction. I think it's easy to have that reaction, but what I actually want to get to is like, what is it doing that is too much? Because spooky ghosts have kind of always been a cool effect in the game, but I more want to focus this conversation on kind of understanding what we really want out of this item, because I think no one can deny it's clearly ubiquitous. It is very much everywhere.
I think it's mostly an issue when mid laners are getting it, just because all the other AP items are pretty weak right now. You know, there's no real reason to get a Morello over a Frost Queen unless you super need a healing debuff. The fact that everyone has it and it's so strong, I think it would be better, you know, just taking it off the income item, sort of how it was before. Just make a good item that has the spooky ghosts, because it is, a pretty interesting item you can use to catch people out. But when it's just so easily accessible, and I'm getting hit by like 2 or 3 of them per game to the point where I like need swiftness boots to not just die anytime I get ghosted. It's a pretty sad time.
And that's the thing for me that I don't like about Frost Queens. Like we're seeing it in lanes and stuff, and the nerf might push it out of lanes because of the mono regen and stuff, but it's supposed to be an item that's gonna go chase people down, and now it scales with distance. But it occupies too much space. It's too powerful, right? That's the problem with it, is that it's too powerful for what it does, for the cost. And that's why I have the Equinox versus Face of the Mountain. The Face of the Mountain active, you can sit there and go, okay, I'll actually not take that because I want an extra ward every time I back, so I have 4, and I also want to be able to go 800 gold sooner towards my Aegis for my team. But that's like a trade-off. I'm like, that sounds like a good trade-off. This is like extra ward versus
There are times you may want
versus
one, times you may
dominating.
want the other, or something like that.
I still think it's going to be overwhelmingly purchased over Eye of the Watcher because it's just really powerful, even in just stat efficiency.
So what I would say from a design side is like power is one thing about this item, but I think one thing that's actually even more scary to me as a designer about this item isn't necessarily the raw power, but the amount of situations it's useful in, right? Where it's basically when you get this item, it's like, okay, well, what do I want to do when they're diving on me? Push the button and they slowed them and escaped. What do I want to do when I'm chasing them in lane? Push the button, they escaped. What do I want to do if I don't know, have any idea where they are? Push the button and go catch them. It's just like anytime you push that button is honestly a good time to push that button, because even if the ghosts don't hit anyone, it's powerful because you know their direction they're in and that they're not close to you.
Yes, exactly.
Right, yeah.
It's just, I think it just has too much in it. So I would either like to see the gold income hit. Well, I guess just keep the passive that the non-upgraded had, where if you kill minions, you lose the passive for a while, because that would keep it in check for laners. You'd still get some gold out of it, but it wouldn't be like you're playing Brand, you clear the wave, and then you hit them while they're farming under turret, and you get an extra 45 gold, because that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to touch on really quick, because I worry it's like, oh, people are going to hear this conversation and be like, oh, Frost Queen's claim is toxic, and it's the terrible item, and we should get rid of it. And I don't think that's what we're saying here, because honestly, the item is like very fun to use and has great high moments and is a cool item. It's really just a matter of like, we need to think about where it should be good and what should be really powerful about it, and emphasize that while they're taking down the other stuff. And that's what these nerfs are going for in their direction.
Right. There's one change I think we've completely overlooked, which is the ghosts now get more spooky as they travel.
Oh.
Ooh. Wait, do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, they get spookier and bigger.
Now,
They get bigger?
Now
They get
as
bigger
they go,
'cause-
it doesn't change their hitbox at all, but now you're like, oh God! They're like, no!
Oh, my baby.
We failed.
I'll have to add VO for the ghosts. No!